U.S. President Donald Trump says a new round of negotiations with Iran could happen in the next couple of days. A source from Pakistan's foreign ministry told Al Jazeera that Islamabad is offering to again host the talks. Tehran says excessive demands and a lack of political will from the U.S. delegation prevented a breakthrough in Islamabad last weekend. Washington maintains that the so-called right people in Iran still want to make a deal. U.S. Vice President JD Vance says the ceasefire with Iran is holding. Vance led the U.S. delegation in Islamabad on Sunday.
What's interesting about this is that we have this ceasefire that's in place. I think it's 6 or 7 days old. Right now, the ceasefire is holding. And what you're seeing is what the president wants to make, he doesn't want to make like a small deal. He wants to make the grand bargain. I think the people we're sitting across from wanted to make a deal, and I know the President of the United States told us to go out there and negotiate in good faith. That's what we did. That's what we're going to keep on doing.
Well, John Holman joins us now live from Washington, D.C. John, so the U.S. Vice President, JD Vance, he's been talking about negotiations with Iran. What else have we heard from him?
Yeah, and it all sounds quite upbeat, doesn't it? He says there at the end of that soundbite, that's what we're going to keep on doing. What else have we heard? He said that we haven't had a meeting like this, and talking about this high level between US and Iranian officials in 49 years. And of course, there's a lot of mistrust between Iran and US. You're not going to solve that overnight. So seeming to sort of say, rather than saying that in a negative way, we understand possibly what the difficulties could be. And he said, as you heard them there, that he thinks that the people that were sitting across from him were trying to make a deal, that they were, from the US side, negotiating in good faith. And we've got on top of this President Trump telling the New York Post that there could be more negotiations in Islamabad, in Pakistan, in a couple of days' time. So all of the noises from the US camp coming out quite positively, talking up the prospect of a deal, at the same time that they're blockading the Strait of Hormuz and preventing Iranian oil from getting out, and from Iranian ships that go to Iranian ports getting through the Strait of Hormuz. So there's definitely a sense at the same time that they're trying to turn the screw, but at the same time trying to send out perhaps public overtures that they are looking to get some sort of peace. Vice President JD Vance said that what President Trump wanted to do is to treat Iran as a normal country economically in a way that it perhaps hadn't done, and that he thinks that Iran can thrive. So that's the message. Fall in with our demands, and that the key demand here is to give up any hope for a nuclear weapon from Iran and even nuclear activity. But this is what you get: a release perhaps from economic sanctions, that you'll be treated as a normal country economically, and that's what we can offer you.
So, John, as we wait to find out if diplomacy can continue going forward, I want to ask you also if any more details have emerged about the U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports along the Strait of Hormuz, like how it's being put together or how it's intended to work going forward.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the main deal, Mohammed, which is that the US Army authority that's in charge of this, which is US Central Command, has said that not a single ship has got through. We were hearing differently yesterday that one ship might have got through the blockade, but it seems that it only got through the Strait of Hormuz itself and is now stuck on the other side of it in front of the blockade. They said that they sent 6 vessels back the way they came, and they went when they were ordered to. There's a huge naval force that the US has gathered to try and enforce this blockade. More than a dozen warships, they say dozens of aircraft, 10,000 plus personnel there, whether they be Marines or soldiers or airmen, who are all working together to keep this blockade going. That's obviously quite an expense, and it's also a diplomatic expense. A lot of Iranian oil, for example, goes towards China. That's Iran's biggest customer, and about a third of China's domestic oil needs are met from Iran. So the longer that this goes on, the more those needs aren't going to be met. Will that then make China put pressure on Iran to negotiate with the United States, or just anger that country? We don't know yet. So there is a gamble here, and there is also a sense that the longer that this blockade goes on, the more it makes things economically worse for the global energy market, but also by the United States, that's not immune to that. So there's a lot of different factors, but for the moment, the blockade continues, and the hope of further talks in a couple of days, if President Trump's remarks be taken at face value, is also there in the air.
All right, that's Al Jazeera's John Holman live for us with all the latest in Washington, D.C. John, thanks so much for breaking that all down for us.